Being a superhero isn't easy, and although we put them up on pedestals and idolize many of their good deeds, admiring their strong sense of morality, the truth is sometimes even those with the best intentions make mistakes. Today we'll be diving into some of the moments when our superheroes shocked us by making calls that were less than perfect, leading to some of the most catastrophic events both in their timeline and sometimes in their entire world's timeline as we count down the top 10 superhero mistakes you won't believe. And if you like what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Spread some love by giving that sub a click. Alright, let's get counting. Number 10. Batman almost marries a villain. Almost. So close. Almost. I'm not talking about Catwoman either, who admittedly is more anti-hero than anything if we really had to categorize her. Batman once almost became engaged to Jezebel Jet. She was a model who came from money and played a bit of cat and mouse with Bruce originally, not accepting his offer to take her out, remarking that she had really no interest in being another notch on his bedpost. However, the two would run into one another while skiing and decided to start seeing one another. Jezebel was almost deterred from continuing the relationship as Bruce seemed too distant and absent, but then she discovered that he was Batman. This actually strengthened their bond, and the two were even rumored to be engaged soon. That's how close they got. But it turned out that Jezebel had actually been working for the Black Glove all along, and actually sought to destroy Batman. Batman revealed in turn that he actually knew about this the whole time, and had actually been doubly playing her the whole time. But I'm kinda skeptical about that. If he knew, why not just defeat her? Why keep up the whole facade of pretending to be in love with her? And why not just expose her? I guess he felt he kind of had to follow the breadcrumb trail, but still, you know, when you get buried and then you're like, yeah, me getting buried was part of it, that was part of the plan. I'm wondering, I'm curious. Number 9. Peter Parker gets fired. Spider-Man being Tony Stark's fanboy somewhat extends to the comics. We saw an example of this when Spider-Man decided to publicly reveal his secret identity in the first Civil War storyline, which he did in support of the Superhero Registration Act, and in hopes of inspiring other supers to get registered and become heroes working for the government, tossing in his mask, so to speak, with Tony's side of the war. However, this quickly turned out to be a bad move for Peter, as J. Jonah Jameson was none too happy to discover that this meant he had been employing and paying Spider-Man, who he viewed as his nemesis, this whole time. He ended up firing Peter Parker as a result of his unmasking. Not a good move. Lost his job. Mistakes were made. Number 8. Captain America and Wolverine let Deadpool's family die. Or at least appear dead. Look like they died. During the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly story arc in Volume 3 of Deadpool, Wade comes to Captain America and Wolverine trying to convince them to join him in going up against what he suspects is a villainous plot, targeting himself and members of the Super Soldier program. And a man he can't quite remember named Butler might be behind it. It turns out he's right, and his daughter and her mother have also gone missing. However, when he first contacts Steve and Logan, neither is convinced that Deadpool is really onto something, and they both just dismiss it as standard Wade craziness and paranoia. This turns out to be wrong though, and their delay to join the cause means all 3 of the heroes end up getting kidnapped and end up arriving too late to save Deadpool's family. Sad face. Or so it seems, or so it seems. Number 7. Ultimate Tony Stark makes a sex tape. In the Ultimate world, Tony made the mistake of trusting and falling in love with Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. Fortunately, he had a contingency plan put in place to put a stop to her just in case, seizing control of the nanites in her bloodstream, which allowed her to control her own Iron Man suit and using them to knock her out with enough time to apprehend her. Still, trusting her ended up being a pretty huge mistake, as it ended up causing the death of Jarvis, whom Tony was not fast enough to save. Natasha had revealed she was still a spy and a villain and had never actually been a true hero. And although Hawkeye ended up killing her for her misdeeds, the sex tape that she and Tony had made together before this all happened would come back to bite him in the butt, as most sex tapes do to most people. Well, maybe except for Kim Kardashian. She put a more positive spin on her sex tape. Number 6. Deadpool kills his parents. Granted, this isn't really Deadpool's fault, as he was kind of brainwashed somewhat and manipulated into this one. Anyways, Butler sent him on a mission to assassinate a target, and Deadpool enthusiastically took the job. Despite having weird feelings when arriving to the home, and even having Sabretooth, who was actually in on the plot, still suggest that maybe it was a job Deadpool didn't necessarily have to do. But Deadpool was committed. After a fight with Alpha Flight, Deadpool returned home later in the evening. He recognized a room and the items in it, likely because these were his parents and that was his bedroom. But despite the weird feelings that he couldn't quite shake, he didn't remember his childhood home and his parents enough to bow out. He set the home ablaze while his parents slumbered peacefully upstairs, committing what he had set out to do and ultimately unintentionally killing his parents. Number 5. Spider-Man causes the death of Gwen Stacy. One of Spider-Man's saddest moments in the comics is likely when he caused the death of Gwen Stacy. During a battle with Green Goblin, Gwen is dropped onto the top of a bridge support and then subsequently knocked off of that. Spider-Man uses his webs to grab her leg before she can fall into the water, congratulating himself for saving his one true love as he pulls her up to safety. Unfortunately, his quick thinking wasn't enough to save Gwen. In fact, it looks as though in the panel that he may have actually caused her demise instead. The panel in which he catches her has in it 2 very important sound effects. So one of them is the swick of Spidey catching her with his web, and the other is the snap of what appears to be Gwen Stacy's neck snapping. Needless to say, Spider-Man quickly rescinded his congratulatory remarks and even went so far as to blame himself for her death. But was it his fault? Was she dead when she already landed? So many questions. Number 4. Batman kills Silver St. Cloud. For a guy who prides himself on thinking of all the possibilities, Batman still seems to make a good amount of mistakes. One such mistake is when he trusted Baphomet, a vigilante who cropped up and whom Batman decided to ally himself with. It turned out that mysterious Baphomet, who Batman thought he knew so much about, was actually the even more mysterious Batman villain, Onomatopoeia, a villain who we never really get to see enough of in my opinion. Proving just how deadly he can be, Onomatopoeia revealed himself at a time where Batman had re-fallen in love with Silver St. Cloud, a former flame of his, since rekindled. In fact, the two had become engaged and were preparing to get married, and seemed pretty perfect together. While in the Batcave, Batman had his back turned, and that one moment of dropping his guard led to Onomatopoeia's reveal as he killed Silver, slashing her neck open with a man. This is why Batman doesn't trust people. That's why he has so many issues. Number 3. Deadpool kills Agent Coulson. Deadpool is a hero who makes a lot of mistakes. Part of this boils down to being an anti-hero with a misguided moral compass, or really just a lack of moral compass entirely. He really wants to be good, but he just doesn't know how, so sometimes he relies on role models to help guide him. In this particular case, the role model he trusted was Captain America, and of course that is where it all went wrong for him. Captain America is usually pretty trustworthy, of course, so you might be wondering why Steve would possibly lead Deadpool astray. Well, during the events surrounding Secret Empire, Captain America's whole existence was kind of retconned, and it was revealed that he was actually a longtime sleeper agent for Hydra. Cap gave Deadpool a mission to kill Agent Coulson, and wanting to trust his idol, Wade accepted the mission without question. Tragically, this ended with Deadpool killing Agent Phil Coulson before Coulson could get the word out that Cap was up to something bad. Even more tragic, Deadpool was never given an explanation by the villainous Captain America as to why he had to kill Coulson. So he did it and then was just like, why did I have to do? Okay, I guess it was probably fine. Number 2. Kyle Rayner lets Alexandra DeWitt literally get fridged. Kyle Rayner was once a struggling graphic designer who ended up acquiring a Green Lantern ring by happenstance. It wasn't revealed to him at the time exactly why he'd been chosen. Regardless, Kyle chose to embrace his new role as hero and ran home to show his ex-girlfriend Alexandra, who he was living with at the time. Alexandra supported him, even encouraging him to redesign his costume after people mistook him for Hal Jordan, who had recently been known as Parallax and wasn't really in the people's good books at the time. She ended up being a huge help to him at a time where he was really struggling, and the two actually ended up resuming their romance because of all of this and getting back together. But Kyle failed Alex when she needed him most, and the villain Major Force ended up killing her while Kyle was away, stuffing her corpse in their apartment's fridge and leaving it for Kyle to find. And that's where the term fridging comes from when we're talking about that in comics, which refers to when women are mistreated in stories and misused, like how Alexandra was then kind of reduced to just being a symbol for revenge to Kyle. When women are just like little plot points as opposed to characters. You know what I mean? I don't blame you, I blame writers, but it's fine. Number 1. The Illuminati almost destroyed themselves and the world. The Illuminati is an organization that was intended to be a kind of secret superhero government. However, most of the members refused this course of action, and instead they just became a powerful group of heroes who share information in an attempt to combat global threats. They just basically hang out in the dark a lot. This group consists of Iron Man, Mr. Fantastic, Doctor Strange, Professor X, Black Bolt, and Namor. But for a group of heroes trying to make all the right calls for the world, they certainly make a lot of wrong ones. It's probably why Black Panther did not want to be a part of this team. One of the worst was when they elected to send Hulk off planet in order to protect the Earth, a controversial decision that ended up blowing up in their faces when Hulk returned, stronger than ever and pretty pissed at them, as Namor had predicted would happen. Namor actually didn't agree with the decision to banish Bruce from Earth. But Hulk was not so much angry at them for being banished, but more so for killing his wife. He blamed them for the death of Kyra, his wife, queen, and soon-to-be baby mama, because the ship he had traveled to the planet of Sakaar in had exploded, killing many, including her, and effectively kind of destroying the planet's surface itself. In the end, the Illuminati were not behind this destruction, but I think it is fair to blame them for basically causing World War Hulk with their bad decision making. Bad. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you enjoyed this list. What are some of your favorite superhero mishaps? What are some of the most catastrophic moments in comics that can be blamed on superheroes? Who is your favorite flawed superhero? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos. Top 10 superpowers you didn't know Jean Grey had. Baby Jesus comments, she hasn't done this too often, but she was able to transfer her consciousness into Emma Frost, once before being decimated by a Sentinel. Oh shoot! That is a good one. I feel like Jean is actually one of those characters who could do almost anything just with her mind. Walter Blom says, I feel like with Jean finding 10 powers she doesn't have would be more of a challenge. It just might be. Although, trying to find ones that people might not know about, it's always interesting, because that's also quite challenging. You have to find some secondary powers that are lesser known or just lesser used, which I always think is really fun, and hopefully you guys learn a lot from it. Let's see, for powers that she doesn't have though, I would think super strength for one, phasing for another. She can go in the astral plane, but that's not really the same as phasing, and she can use telekinesis and energy siphoning to sort of make her look strong, but that isn't really having super strength, right? So there's a couple to start us off on that potential list. And that's all the time we have for comments today. For a chance to have your thoughts shared in a future video, be sure to comment below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.